Hi, my name is Laura Moretti. I'm a senior lecturer in pre-modern Japanese studies at the University of Cambridge. Today, this is the second video of a series of videos which are designed to talk you through how to read early modern Japanese cursive. And today we're actually starting working on some texts. And we will be using a humorous take on measles by working on the text that comes together with a so-called hashika-e or measles print. This print is part of the private collection that I have called the Suzuran Bunko. Suzuran Bunko, it is my collection. I love lilies of the valleys, hence Suzuran. This particular print was donated by Jonathan Hill bookseller for the project Tackling Pandemics in Early Modern Japan that we developed in 2020 when the 7th summer school in Japanese early modern paleography could not go ahead because of COVID-19. If you want to know more about how Jonathan Hill and Megumi Hill acquired these exciting materials, and you please do watch this video, which is available on YouTube. Now, for us today is a matter of working on the text and decoding the text. Just a few information about this print. The year of publication is 1862. And as you can see here, let me change my pointer. As you can see here, we have what is called aratame-in. And these little seals allow you to date later publications. We're really talking about the 18th, 19th century, and to date some the prints. For the time being, I will not explain you how aratame-in works, but there are aratame-in tables, and as you can see here, we are talking about it has to really match, and we're talking about 1862, the 6th month of 1862. The publisher is inscribed in the cartouche. The cartouche just gives the characters for Ise and Sho, and Tomizawa Tatsuzo, who has worked on hashika-e, indicates that possibly this is Iseya Shonosuke. So we're dealing with an 1862 text, so quite late in the early modern times, and published in Edo by this publisher. We also have inscribed the name of the illustrator. We know that it is a playful illustration, Giga, and the name of the illustrator can be found here. This Ryoko indicates Sosai Ryoko, and the web NDL authorities give you more information about what we know about this particular illustrator. Now, why did I choose this text as the first text to make you work on decoding early modern cursive? First, there are very few Kana variants. If you want to know more about Kana variants, please do check out the first video on our webpage. These few Kana variants are also key Kana variants, which you will find many times in working on early modern texts. That means that after the explanation of the first few lines, you can try and transcribe yourself, and this is indeed what I will ask you to do. On top of that, this is a fun story to read. It's very short, discreet, and all easily readable and great fun, because at the end we will have a pun. So let's start by looking at the title. Those of you who are beginners and already have knowledge of how to read cursive, or some knowledge on how to read cursive, should be able to read this title very easily and quite quickly. You might be stuck on the kanji here, but the rest, it's all phonetic kana, and therefore should be quite straightforward. If you don't have any knowledge of hentai-gana, though, this can be challenging because we do have a kana variant at the beginning here. Actually, we have two shapes that look the same, and it is the same kana variant. So what is this? We turn to the Kana charts that I introduced in the previous videos. If I can just stop the PowerPoint for a second and take you to our website, wakancambridge.com. Under Early Modern Japanese Cursive Resources, you will see that you can download a rough Kana hentai-gana chart and a detailed hentai-gana chart. And the detailed hentai-gana chart comes from the back matter of this particular Kuzushiji dictionary, compiled by Kodama Kota. So I will use this detailed chart in the PowerPoints, but please make sure that you download it. You have to turn it and you make full use of this chart as explained in the first video. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, and for me to explain that this actually is ha. As I told you in the first video, it is important to familiarize yourself with the character, the kanji, from which this particular variant is coming from. We call it jibo. And as you can see from this kanji, we have various ways of making it more and more cursive. The shape that you find in this dictionary will never be as precisely as the shape you have in front of you, because let's not forget that this, even if this was woodblock printed, that would be the hand, the cursive hand of a specific calligrapher creating the shape for us. But as you can see, this shape pretty much is similar to what we find over here. Let's go on. And she is visible to everyone. The next one might be a little bit difficult. It is ka that comes from this particular kanji, from this particular jibo. The feature of this ka is that it looks just like a little loop. Sometimes it has this stroke on top, sometimes it doesn't have it. In the majority of the cases, it doesn't have it. So when you find a little loop, you think, oh, this could be ka. I say could be, because if you go back to the first video, you will see that ka and ru could be very much interchangeable in terms of shape. So you have to be careful in distinguishing, is this ka or is this ru? If we try and put together, because remember what I said in the first video, the important thing is not only to decode the shape, but to make sense of what is on the page. What is the meaning? In this case, hashiru janai, hashiranai ne, hashiranai. Hashika makes perfect sense in the context of the print that we are reading, because the print deals indeed with measles. I did give you a little bit of a hint at the beginning. So hashika would be what we have on the page. I would suggest we leave this behind because it is a kanji and I'll tackle it at the very end. But we know that we're talking about hashika, the measles, and we know we have a shi. So this kanji has to be in a word that allows us to have an okurigana that reads shi. For the time being, I just moved to the second line. This, obviously, we can read it. It's a ha with the dakuten Now, dakuten were not systematically used. Dakuten can be there. Dakuten can also not be there. If you're lucky, dakuten will be in place, like in this case. If you are unlucky, it will not be there to help you out. In this case, we know that it is ba. And now we are stuck with this shape here. And this shape, patto miruto, at first sight, you might think, oh, it is ru, barushi. Now, barushi, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty confident that it does not exist. So you have to rethink. Always remember, it is about the meaning. The shape has to make sense because the meaning makes sense. So it's a matter of shape, but it's also a matter of meaning. In this case, the kana involved here is na. So it's not to be confused, sorry, I moved myself, not to be confused with ru. As you can see, this shape here and this shape here might appear deceptively similar. In this case, banashi makes perfect sense because we have a story, a banashi. Also, barushi doesn't exist. So, banashi. Here, the point is na that comes from this jibo, nara no na, and ru that comes from this jibo, rusu no ru, can be deceptively similar. So make a note. Ru and na can be very similar. Now, to memorize, how to memorize this, if you know a little bit of Italian, you know that luna is the moon. So do na, very similar. Try not to confuse them. And how you don't confuse them? Because you think about the meaning. Barushi doesn't exist, banashi does exist. Now we have hashika, something shi, banashi. Here you need to confront this character. Characters can be very difficult because either sometimes if they are as cursive as this one, you might not have a clue of what they are. So what do you do? As I explained in the first video, we now are very lucky because we have a number of digital online resources that help us having a hint about what this might be. And again, I stopped sharing the slides for a second. If you go onto our webpage under resources and you scroll down, if you're struggling, you can try and use digital materials. This AI Tegaki Kuzushi Kensaku is really what I'm talking about. As you might recall from the first video, this is where you can scribble inside what you see. Now, I did it beforehand. As you can see, my scribbling is rather, it doesn't look beautiful, but it has all the elements that you see on the image. As I said in the first video, it's really very important that all the elements are there. Otherwise, the AI will not pick up that particular shape. The result is a number of kanji. The kuzushikata, the cursive form of which all resemble each other. Hence, you have all these possibilities. So we go back to the idea that you have to make sense of what is on the page. Hashika, of all these characters, there is one that makes perfect sense. Pittari au no ga arun desu yo, which is this one. Otoshi. And why does it make sense? Because otoshi banashi was a specific label for short stories that would end with a punchline, normally in the form of a pun. The title now makes perfect sense. We are dealing with hashika otoshi banashi, with a funny, humorous story around measles, and we expected ending with a pun. Keep this in mind because you will be asked to read this story up until the end, transcribe it, and make sense of it which also involves understanding the pun. There is another online material which is listed on our webpage in the same place, and it is this one. This particular material, as you may recall from the first video, allows you to copy-paste and upload a picture, and the system will use that picture to search the database and find something similar. In this case, if you try to input this picture, unfortunately, this particular way of rendering otosu or daku in cursive is not coming up. So you have to, as I said in the first video, you really have to use all of these resources. Don't just use one, but use them all, because they can be helpful, more or less helpful, according to what you're trying to decode. So we have hashika otoshi banashi. This would be your diplomatic transcription. Hiragana remains hiragana, kanji remain kanji, and if you really are doing a diplomatic, the new line will start as a new line. Okay, so we've done the title. Now we want to move into the text. So in this video, I will cover just the first 2 lines of the text. The purpose is again to talk you through a few key kana variants. Once you have acquired them, then you can apply them to read and transcribe the text on your own. So these are the first 2 lines of the text. We start with this diacritic mark, this sort of kigo. They loved diacritic marks in early modern cursive texts, and this is the chart that we will normally deal with and use. They had diacritic marks for repeating sounds, as well as this particular diacritic mark that was used from time to time to record a poem, a song, or speech. And you will see in this text, it actually doesn't necessarily indicate the speech. So, well, it indicates the speech of the narrator, if you want. So I think there is much more research that needs to be done on this kigo, but this is what normally we hear. So this shape here is rendered normally in this shape here. How to input it? I'm using Windows, so I'm not sure about Mac user. I do apologize about that. But in Windows, if you insert the word uta, you will see that that will come up. In my Henkan system, in my conversion system, comes up soon because I use it a lot. You might have to scroll down among all the possibilities for uta. It probably also is available when you do insert symbol, but I will not try it out because normally it takes quite some time. Okay, so let's go back. So we have dealt with this diacritic mark, and now let's go on with the sentence. In these 2 lines, these are the kana that you have already learned. So now for you, this is ha, and this should really become a very immediate kana for you because it was really very much used for ha, among many others. But as you will see in this text, this was the preferred way of using ha. This you already know it, could be ka, it could be ru, but again, hashika, this is what we're talking about, so you shouldn't have problems in recognizing that. Ha, ba again, and then we have seen this one, it could be na, it could be ru, so we have to keep our mind open, and then once we get there to understand the meaning. So now you are set to read this, the first beat quite easily. We have, though, a few more variants. So the first two kana are easy peasy to read, kono. Now be careful about this ko. Again, I change my pointer. Because this ko, sometimes you might think, is it ko or is it to? Tono janai, tono sama no hanashi janai ne. Kono makes perfect sense. But it is true that ko and to are, again, deceptively similar. Kono, and then you might be stuck on this hiragana, which is ta. They really loved this hiragana, and in the next video, I will also give you a little visual tip on how to memorize it. But for the time being, I just would like you to start familiarizing yourself with this shape for ta. It comes from this particular jibo. As you can see, you could have a much less cursive way of rendering it. This shape was equally used in early modern text, but they really liked this very flat, simplified shape. Then what comes after is now very clear to everyone. Kono, tabi, hashika, and therefore, if we are going to transcribe it, this is what will appear in your transcription. Everything stays as it is in the original. The only thing is that you are using the kana that we know, we normally use nowadays. Kono, tabi, hashika. But always think about the meaning. This is really, I cannot emphasize more than this is really necessary. And you will be sick of hearing me saying that, but I will. So if we were to think about the meaning, this is how we could transpose the text from what we have in the diplomatic transcription over here to what we call a kote, which sometimes people refer to as a critical edition. To be critical edition, you need also notes and all sorts of information about what we are reading. But the first step from a diplomatic transcription or honkoku, again, for this, see the first video, to initial critical edition is that all hiragana text becomes hiragana and kanji. Once you give the kanji, the original hiragana is converted into furigana. I repeat. When you have a hiragana only text, like in this case, or the majority is hiragana, for a diplomatic transcription or honkoku, you transcribe everything in hiragana as it is in the original. If you want to move towards a critical edition, which takes into consideration the ease of reading for your reader, then you can substitute hiragana for kanji, making the meaning very clear. But as a convention, your original hiragana will be relocated as a reading gloss furigana. And I've done this kono tabi hashika. Why do we do this? You don't need to do it on the page, but you need to do it in your head because we're thinking about the meaning. Kono tabi is not tabi, I don't know, the tabi that you use with geta, for example, but it is kono tabi. On this occasion, hashika, measles, and then we see how the sentence proceeds. So always check the meaning as you are reading and doing your transcription. Decoding, transcribing has to lead to the understanding of the meaning. Let's move on. This is clear enough, ha. And then we have this one over here, which could be a ru, or it could be a na. We have already seen it. As you can see, we have these two next to each other. This one is much smaller than this one. It also lacks this little tail outside. For the time being, let's think ru, na. I already know that. But really the key is the kana in the middle. The kana in the middle, if you look at the shape, it could be either you or ya. As you can see, you and ya could be again deceptively similar in these materials. Think about the meaning. Without thinking the meaning, you could read it as ha yuru, ha yuna, ha yaru, ha yana. Now, there is only one word among the four that I said that makes sense in this context. Hayaru, because we are talking about the measles being extremely popular. I'm taking this video in 2021, February. We're still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that would be the verb that we would use for COVID-19. Hayaru, ne? Hayaru. So as I said, this shape could look like you, could look like ya. This shape could look like nu, could look like ru, very difficult to say, but the only word that makes sense in this combination is hayaru. Konotabi, hashika hayaru, and then we have a new kana here. This is, again, as I said, all the kana variants in this text are key kana variants. So once you have learned them, you are on the right track. And this ni comes from this particular jibo, from this particular kanji. As you can see, some calligraphic versions are closer to the original kanji. Some calligraphic versions are more distant from it. And as you can see, this one is very much similar to what we have around here in the Kana chart. As I said, you will never find the exactly precise shape. So this is ni, hayaru ni, and what comes afterwards should be fairly simple. Tsu, I, and then this is the only difficult one. You might see a ku in here, but it's not ku, and the key for it not being ku is on this squiggly bit on top of it. And the squiggly bit gives away that this is actually te, that comes from this jibo for ten, for heaven. So when you find something that looks at first sight like a ku, ask yourself, is this ku? Is there something squiggly on top of it, like a little bit of a hat? I mean, in this country, the UK, people use a lot fascinators. And so they go to weddings and they have this little thing and they have a squiggly thing on top. They also do it for horse racing. So the squiggly bit is really the point in the fascinator. And this is also the squiggly bit, which is the point to distinguish ku between ku and te. So don't confuse it, and let me move my face again, with ku. Here, meaning-wise, ku wouldn't make sense, but te makes sense because it is ni tsuite, ni tsuite. So let's recap. Kono tabi, hashika hayaru ni tsuite. This is the diplomatic transcription on the right. I will not talk more about how I did it. Or how it is done. And on the left, you have the starting of a critical edition where the kanji substitutes the kana. Kono tabi, hashika hayaru ni tsuite. Okay, here I will stop a second to give you a little bit of a tip on how to input furigana when you do transcriptions. When you go in, let me just go into a vertical text. And here we have hayaru, which is it peasy? Let's think about another word like isha. I am spelling it according to the rekishiteki kanazukai. So ya is not small, but it is big. If you are not familiar with Rekishiteki Kanazukai, I'm sure you all are, because if you're watching this video, you have bungo. But if you have any doubt about Rekishiteki Kanazukai, read a little bit about it. One point is that the sound sha doesn't have the small ya as normally we would have nowadays, but it has this a bigger size ya. Now, if we want to transform this into kanji and put the hiragana as furigana, you do what you normally do to put the furigana in word. And I'm sorry, I only use word. But then here is what you need to do. Don't accept the furigana that is there. Just delete it, because that could be a false friend. Then, if there are two kanji and it is not, they are not itaiji, like hashika, for example, but each of the kanji has its own reading, I on the one hand and sha on the other one, just click mono and then input the hiragana that was in the original I, shi, and then a big ya. This is correct input of furigana. You might think this is really excruciatingly picky. Why should I do that? Well, when you work for producing diplomatic transcriptions, or in case you are including the kanji because it is a critical edition, and you are going to publish it in Japan, publishing houses will be extremely picky about precisely this. In other words, if you, if you turn out having, let me do it here, Isha, in this way, this is not correct, and they will ask you to, publishers will ask you to redo it. So once you learn it, it's done. If we go back to our slide, in this case, hashika, it's not that this is read as ha and that's a shika. Actually, this would be read machine, but hashika is a different reading for the compound as such. That's why it's fine to have hashika on both kanji without distinguishing the two kanji. Whereas hayaru is just two kanji, so that naturally falls on one and the other. So you don't have much choice with two kana. So one kana for each kanji, okay? Good. Meaning-wise, この度、hashika-hayaru について, so we are dealing with nowadays, measles are all the rage. And what happens? Because of that, then we go to the next page, the next line, sorry. This might be a new kana. This is actually one of the kana that I told you in video 1. Believe me, just believe me for the time being. This is it. This is shi that comes from kokorozashi. As all the variants we're learning today, it was a very common variant for hentai gana. So shi. And then what comes after should be all recognizable to you. There is nothing new. The only funny, maybe, shape might be this one, but still I trust that you all see a ma in here. So at this point, I want to make sense, you can make sense of all the kanji. So what I will do is to point it, give you a few seconds of silence, you say it, I say it, and we'll see if we are on the same line, okay? So this one is she, I'm giving it away. What about this one? Yeah, it could be ya, it could be you. So we need to go on reading in order to make sense whether it is ya or it is you. This one is what we use in contemporary script. Ya, u. It is u, u. So we have she, a ya or a you, and u. So we have either sure because shi, ya, u in Rekishiteki Kanazukai would be sho, or we have shu because that would be the reading in Rekishiteki Kanazukai. So let's keep it open. And then we have, yes, we have seen it many times today, ba. And then we have, yes, it is I. So in this case, shobai, shubai, it makes sense, shobai, indeed, and it means commerce, business. So I will go with shi, ya, u, ba, I. Later on, I will put the transcription on the screen, but for the time being, just follow what I'm saying about this text, okay? Shi, ya, u, bai, read as shobai, meaning business. This is easy peasy? No. This is easy peasy. Hi. This one I gave it away. Ma. This one, we have commented already a great deal on it. Na. Shobai. No. Himana. Ru would not make sense in this context, so you can discard it and just fix on na. Himana. Excellent. Hito. This is a kanji. Finally, we have one kanji in this text. And then what is this? Like in modern Japanese. A. What is this one? Tsu. Now, here you might think, oh, wait a second. Is it ai or a tsu? Okay, if you have this doubt, make a note and you move on, and it has to make sense. So we go on. This one, we have just read it here. Therefore, ma. This is very different from this loop here. As you can see, it is more vertical and longer vertically. So this is ri. And this one is the little squiggly ku. Therefore, it's not a ku, it is te. So if I go back, hito, aimarite would not make sense. So I go back to the idea of tsu. Atsumarite makes sense. So let's see the transcription. Shobai no hima na hito atsumarite. Again, if I want to move towards a friendlier critical edition where the kana is substituted by kanji, I would deal with something like this. Shobai, as you can see, shi, ya, u, ba, I. Shi, ya, u is the Rekishiteki Kanazukai. I leave it as it is, even when I move the hiragana into the furigana. No, hima na hito atsumarite. Excellent. So if I actually go back for a second to the whole print, you will see that we have a bunch of people. Atsumatte iru. They are gathering. All this bunch of people are shobai no hima na hito. And it is only by going on reading that we will discover who in business is hima, because of the measles, they don't have any client coming to their shop. So now what I ask you to do is to work yourself on the rest of the text. Do refer to this image where I have circled in red the kana variants that you do not know. In purple is a difficult kanji. As you saw in this text, there are very, very few kanji. This is a kanji and can be difficult. In green are a little bit of difficult kana, and I'll tell you why. before I let you work on this text. And in blue is just a difficult one because the block, the wood block, had a crack in it, and therefore we can't really read. I mean, what was there is not there anymore. And in yellow, it's a double kana. So what I will do is to talk you through what you need to know, what strategies you can use for the red ones. Okay, if you are stuck, then we go through the green, the yellow, and the purple with strategies, okay, and a little bit of information. So for the red one, here the problem will be for you to understand this shape if you have never seen it before. Again, as I suggested, go into, if you really want a quick hint, go onto the AI Tegaki Kuzushiji Kensaku, insert a similar form, a similar shape, and you will see that you have many things coming up. How Yama comes out of this is just beyond me. But as you can see, you have at least 2 hiragana, and then you go back to the text and think, okay, which one makes sense? Ko, zu makes sense because it means konai toyu koto desu ne. Now, my suggestion is always go back to the Kana chart. Leave the sending woman for a second, concentrate on the left for a second, and make sure that you go back to the Kana chart, the detailed one, and try to familiarize yourself with other shapes that this Kana variant that comes from this jibo haru might take, okay? The tip here that I can give you, you remember from video 1, I said that some of us might memorize this Kana variants with the silly connections. And in this case, to me, this shape looks like a pregnant woman who is standing up. Now, if you don't see the pregnant woman, that's fine. But if this comparison is shocking enough for you to remember this shape is su, go for it. It's entirely up to you. But on a more, serious tone, this shape comes from this jibo. And again, as I said in video 1, I would suggest memorizing the jibo, or at least the connection between a certain shape and the jibo, the kanji it comes from. So on the red ones, this is the way for you to proceed. You can also skip the AI Tegaki Kuzushiji Kensaku and just refer to the Kana charts. It's really up to you. What works for you? So I will not comment on any other red one because you know what to do. I now would look at the green one. This one is a katakana looking hiragana. Yes, I'm sorry. There are such things as katakana looking variants for ha, mi, and ni. Stay tuned. In the next video, I will explain why. So to keep you hooked for the time being, remember that when in this text you see this shape, which is mi, katakana looking mi is not katakana. Careful though, this applies only to ha, mi, and ni. It doesn't apply to other katakana that you will find in this text. A little help here. This is a katakana. Another little help. This is a katakana. Sorry, it is covered by the circle, but it is a katakana. So only ha, mi, ni, they might look like katakana, but they are actually hiragana variants. And just to make you understand also where you can check what I'm saying, if you go into even the rough chart, why don't we use the rough chart for the time being? If you go under ni, you will see, ni, katakana looking ni is actually a hiragana. and we can use it mi, for example, over here, and in under ha over here. Okay, pretty much the idea is that the jibo is the same, so I gave it away, but still do go to the next video where there will be a proper comment. Now I'd like to talk to you about this yellow thing. The yellow thing is actually a double kana. It is ko and to together. Pretty much what happens is that the upper part of ko is there. The lower part of ko just becomes a vertical line that encroaches onto the vertical line of to. So koto. Now, this was such a set sort of version of to kana that in the Meiji period, there was even a katsuji that was made for this specific shape. One point is that if you try and use the AI kuzushiji kensaku, and for example, and be very careful, you do everything you need to do, it will not come up. Why? Because this AI system refers to a database where kana are only used as single signs, not as in this case, two signs connected to each other. So you have to be careful when you use this system. And the last point is this kanji here. Kanji, again, you can use the AI kuzushiji, tegaki kuzushiji kensaku as a starting point, but then remember to use the kuzushiji jiten, the kuzushiji dictionaries that I introduced in video 1. So that's it. You're now set to work on your text. So happy transcription. Remember, what I'm asking you to do is a honkoku, a diplomatic transcription. Hiragana remains hiragana. The punctuation remains what it is in the original. Dakuten, likewise, remains what it is. And all the rules that I have explained in the first video. On the web page, you will, I have then added the file with the transcription and also this starting out kote or critical edition, so that you can, once you have done your work, you can go and check. So happy transcription. Bye.